What's up, guys? Justin here with TheSketchUpEssentials.com, back with another SketchUp Essentials tutorial for you. So last week we talked through, we've been doing some kind of basics tutorials on Tuesday, just walking you through the basics of how to use SketchUp, some things to get you started, that kind of thing. Last week we talked about how to model a small house from the outside. This week we're going to talk about modeling interiors. So let's go ahead and just jump into it. So to start off, we're going to start by modeling our floor plate. So our floor plate is basically going to be the outline of our house exterior. So it's basically us roughing out the area of our house. So in this case, I'm going to draw a rectangle using the rectangle tool. So I'm going to tap the R key and click on the center point. And you can see how this lets me draw a rectangle. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to type in the dimensions of my floor plate. So in this case, I'm going to make this a 30 foot by 20 foot. So I type in 30 foot, comma 20 foot, and I hit the enter key. That'll draw a 30 foot long by 20 foot wide rectangle in here. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to draw a little porch on here. So we'll say this is going to be 10 foot by 4 foot. Oops. So that'll be 10 foot by 4 foot. So I'm just doing the same thing. I'm starting a rectangle in the corner there, and then just drawing a rectangle with the dimensions that I want. And so now when I come in here and I push pull this, that front porch area is going to stay flat because this is a separate face from this one. So we've got our general floor plate roughed out. Well, probably the first thing I'm going to go ahead and do, is I'm going to right click and I'm going to reverse these faces. So every face in SketchUp has a front side and a back side. You can see how that back side is going to be darker than the front side. That's how you can tell the difference, and it's just kind of a good practice to have the front face always facing your camera. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to activate the offset tool, and we're going to go ahead and model our outside wall. So the offset tool is a tool that basically takes all the edges around a shape and it offsets them by a certain length. So if I click inside this face, you can see how what this is doing is this is creating offsets of all of these lines at a fixed length from the original line. So in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to assume that my exterior walls are 6 inches. So all I did is I typed in 6 inches and I hit the enter key. And what that did is that offset that wall so that now it's a 6-inch thick wall. Well, now I know exactly what size my interior floor plate is, so that I can come in here and I can rough out my wall. So, and one of the nice things about the way SketchUp is set up is right now I've got this porch set to 10 feet wide, and I want to set this a little wider. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to select these two lines and I'm going to use the move tool to move them sideways. And you can see how as long as I move those along this red axis, this maintains its shape. So that'll allow me to move this over by another 4 feet. Just to make my covered porch a little bigger. So you can adjust this just by selecting these two lines and using the move tool, and you can see how it automatically makes these other lines longer because they're kind of merged together when you move this back and forth. So just because something has been modeled doesn't mean it's completely set in stone or anything like that. And now there's a few different things you can do in order to rough out the interior of your model. The first thing you could do is you could come in here and you could use the dimension tool to create some grid lines, or the tape measure tool to create some grid lines. So in order to do that, you can just tap the T key to turn that tape measure tool on, or you can click on the tape measure and then you can click on a line just like this. You can click on a line and then you can move your mouse out and you can see how this is creating kind of a dotted guideline in here. And so what that means is it's creating this line, and let's say I want this to be 9 foot. So all that's doing is that's creating a guideline over here, and you can see how that's not actual geometry, so it doesn't split this face or anything like that. So what that means is you're basically creating a bunch of grid lines in here so that you know where your rooms are going to be. So I can create another grid line right here and do the same thing. Like let's say I want this to be at the midpoint of this line. Well, now I've got kind of a grid in here with that. And then let's say I wanted a little hallway in here, and you can see how again this is a little small. So if I want a 4-foot hallway in here and I want these rooms to be 9 foot, that means this house is going to have to be a little wider. So what I can do is I can select these lines, and I can just move this out along the green axis another 4 or 5 feet. So let's say I move this out another 4 feet. So I'm basically just roughing out my shapes. And now what I can do is I can come in here and I can start drawing walls. And when I start drawing walls, then this starts splitting these shapes up into different rooms. So I could do the same thing over here. I could just kind of draw lines along here. And the other thing you could do if you didn't want to do this with grid lines, you could just come in here and you could just draw rectangles in here for your room shapes. So I like it with the grid lines just because that lets me go ahead and lay out that I want my hall to be 4 feet wide. So, and then you can add or remove grid lines as you want to. Like let's say I wanted this to be a 6-foot space over here. I can use that to kind of rough out all my rooms. And so once I get my rooms all kind of roughed out, what I can do is I can start using either the offset tool or I can start moving lines around in order to create my walls. So like for example, this line right here, I'm just going to select it all and I'm just going to move it over. So you just click on these lines and hold the shift key to select multiple lines. And then I'm just going to use the move tool in copy mode. So you can see how if I select these and I use the move tool and I try to move them. So the move tool is the M key on your keyboard. It's moving this line around down here at the bottom, which isn't what we want. But if I tap the control key, then you can see how it's allowing me to create a copy of that line. So I can just move this over, and if I hold the shift key, it'll lock that on this red axis. So now no matter where my mouse goes, it's going to lock that to the red axis, and then I can click on this point right here. Well, now I have my main wall into this room all kind of roughed out. So, and you can do the same thing over here. You can either use the offset tool and offset this 6 inches. And if you do that, you're going to have to come in here and kind of manually merge some lines into some walls. So like you can see how right there, what I had to do is I had to extend these to these walls, because what I want is I want this all to kind of merge into one piece of geometry. So when I extrude it into 3D, I can do it all really quickly. So, and then I can do the same thing to this room, where I can offset that by 6 inches. Erase these extra interiors and erase these lines like this. So now this is all kind of a part of that same geometry. So come in here and do that with the rest of your rooms. And then in this case, since this is only one line, I'm just going to move this manually instead of using the offset tool. So now what I have is I have all my rooms and they're all kind of roughed out to kind of the spaces that I want them to be. So you can see how if I push pull that's going to extrude that into 3D. But one thing that you're going to notice is when you do that, there's no holes for your doors right now. And so there's a couple ways you can fix that. You can either go ahead and push pull this into 3D like this, and then you can draw your doors and push pull them to this back wall. So you can push pull them until they hit this back wall. Or before you push pull this, you can just draw some rectangles in here. So in this case, I'm going to say this is a 3-foot by 6-foot rectangle. And then you can just erase these out so that you have your door openings. So you can see how when I erase these out now, you've got gaps in here where your openings will be. And you'll still have to come in here and kind of fix these so that they're actual openings. But this allows you to get them set in the right place before you ever extrude this into 3D. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to set the rest of my doors real quick. So now what I've got is I've got my laid out floor plan in here, and I can go ahead and extrude these walls into 3D. And this is probably a good point to remind you to go in and save your model. Make sure you're saving your model fairly consistently, because it's never any fun to come in here, do a whole bunch of work, and then lose it all. Sometimes things can happen, things can get unstable, things crash. It's just the nature of working with computers. So make sure you're saving a copy of your model as you go. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to pull this into 3D. And remember, since we set our building to scale by drawing our floor plate to be the actual size that we want it to be, that means we can set our height to scale as well. So you can go ahead and set this to whatever your actual height is going to be. So like, for example, if your ceilings are going to be 9 feet high, you can use the push-pull tool to extrude this to 9 feet. So the push-pull tool can be activated by tapping the P key on your keyboard. And then you can see how when I move my mouse over this face, it's kind of shading everything in. That's indicating that that's the piece that you have selected. So you're just going to click once, and then you're going to go ahead and type in 9 foot and hit the enter key. And what that'll do is that'll extrude all of this to 9 foot. So, and then so this gives you all your walls and your shapes are kind of roughed out. And so now what you can do is you can come in here, and I'm going to go ahead and draw some rectangles all along the top right here. And actually, a little tip, all you really have to do is remember how we used the move tool in copy mode before to move an object. What we're going to do is we're going to select this corner line, and we're going to tap the control key, or we're going to activate the move tool, click on it, and then tap the control key to move it down. And I'm just going to type in 2 feet. What that's going to do is that's going to move my line down 2 feet, and that'll split this face. And once this face is split, you can just use the push-pull tool to extrude this across. And you can erase out this extra geometry. And actually, you can do that by selecting multiple lines as well. So you can move all of these down 2 feet at once if you want to. So now we've got kind of our general shape roughed out. Well, now what we can do is we can come in here and we can start adding things like furniture to our model. So like, for example, let's say this is my living room in here. Well, what I can do is I can add things using the 3D warehouse. And the 3D warehouse is probably the thing that I think makes SketchUp the perfect tool for building interiors, because what it is it's basically a warehouse that you can access by going to File, 3D Warehouse, Get Models, and basically it's full of already made models used by made by other users that you can download into your model for free. So you can find models of just about anything in the 3D warehouse. So in order to find something, all you have to do is open it up, and then in the search bar just type in something like, let's say we wanted to download a couch. I would just search for couch. It'll give me a whole bunch of different options, so you can find one that you like and you can download it quickly into this model. So, and you do have to be careful of the size of the file that you download, because a lot of these files, and this is a pretty big one actually, but I'm going to go ahead and use it anyway because I like the way it looks. You can see how this SketchUp file is 1.7 megabytes. That's pretty big for just a piece of furniture. And you can look in here and you can see it'll tell you how many polygons or how many faces it has. And so what can happen when you download things in the 3D warehouse is if you download a ton of high poly stuff, it can kind of slow your model down. So you just need to be aware of what you're putting into your model. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and download this because I like it. So I'm going to click this download button. It's going to ask if you want to load this into your model, and you're going to say yes. It'll download it, and then you can move your mouse around to place this object. So in this case, I just clicked once and it set this on the ground in my object, or in my model. And so what I can do from here is I can come in here and I can rotate this, and I can also move it to place it where I want it to go. So in this case, I'm going to kind of set this in the middle of the room. And one tip about this is when you're moving stuff around, don't just click randomly in your model to try to place it, because you can see how when I do that, sometimes it goes through walls or goes through the floor. If you have this set on your ground in your model, then move it along the red and green axis. So don't move it diagonally, move it left and right. So like let's say I wanted to put it on the back wall here, and then I wanted to center it. What I would do is I would move it to the back wall first, and then I would move it left and right along the red axis. So you can see how what that does is that keeps me on this face, or it keeps me from moving this up and down and like merging it with the ground and that sort of thing. So, and then once you add your couch, you can go back into your 3D warehouse and you could download something like, so let's go ahead and look for TV and stand actually. So in this case, we'll just go with something simple, and we'll just pick this TV stand right here, just so we can bring something into our model. And we'll go ahead and download that. And part of the reason I picked that is because it looks really simple. And you can see how sometimes, this is a great example actually, sometimes things come into your SketchUp model and they're too big. So you pick something like a TV and a stand, and it comes in, it's as big as your house. So all you have to do is just use the scale tool to resize it, and this just means that the person that modeled it didn't model it at the correct scale. So all you do is click on it, tap the S key, and then just single click on one of these little corner pieces, and you can just scale it down. So you can see how now I resize that, and it's now a more appropriate size. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to rotate it, and you can see how I'm moving it on this green axis and then along the red axis. That'll let me center it on my wall. So now I've got kind of a couch, I've got a TV with a stand, and I can come in here and I can furnish everything else with this as well. So, and then the final thing you can do, you can come back in and furnish the rest of your house. And one thing I would recommend is you can set different layers of objects. Well, I would recommend putting all of these objects on their own layers. So I would create a layer in the layer section called furniture. And then when I do that, I can select these objects and I can put them on the furniture layer by clicking this little drop down in the entity info. Well, now I can turn those on and off. So if I have a whole bunch of furniture objects in my model, they may slow it down. But if I check this little box for visible or invisible, you can turn those on and off. If I turn them off, then SketchUp isn't having to render all that geometry, and so it'll run faster. So I would recommend putting all your furniture on different layers. And then finally what you can do is you can come in and you can select different colors for your walls. You can do that by applying materials to them. So like let's say I just wanted kind of a light, we'll go with this kind of light yellowish color. All you have to do is just select a material, and you can click on all these faces to apply it to these walls. So I can apply kind of a yellow material in here. And then SketchUp also comes with a whole bunch of different textures loaded with it as well. So you can come in here and you can select something like a wood. Well, there's going to be a wood flooring option, so you can apply wood flooring to this area. So, and you can see how that applied that to the whole house, which is okay. You can definitely do that. Or if you wanted all of these areas to be separate, all you have to do is just kind of split them up by drawing a line across them. So if I draw a line across here, now you can see how if I click on each one of these, they load up separately. So you can see by coming here and splitting these, then now you can apply different materials to different rooms. Like let's say I wanted wood floor in my front area here. I'd have that. And then let's say I wanted to pick like a carpet material in the back. I could select a carpet over here. And then in this back room, let's say this was going to be a restroom. You could select like a flooring tile and put that in there. So you can see how that comes in there as a tile material. So you can see how just by using your different materials and your different stuff in the 3D warehouse, you can really quickly and easily come in here and create your own floor plans and your own interiors. So that's where I'm going to wrap up today's video. Leave a comment below. Let me know what you thought. Was this helpful to you? Do you like this workflow? I just love having that SketchUp conversation with you guys. If you like this video, please remember to click that like button down below. If you're new around here, remember to click that subscribe button for new SketchUp content every week. Make sure that you go and check out our featured extension of the week. This week I'm featuring Profile Builder, so you can click on the link down below to check that out. I think I'll probably link to one of my tutorial videos just kind of introducing you to that. So make sure you click on that and go check that out as well. In any case, thank you so much for taking the time to watch this. I really appreciate it, and I will catch you in the next video. Thanks, guys.